A blessed new moon, the first day of the month of the second year, of the second month of the year, the month of Aya. As we know, we have been in the month of Abib, which was full of blessings. The blessings of the Passover feast, the Lord's Supper. Now we are in the second month, which is the month of Aya, and which comes just before the third month, which is Sivan. Sivan is the month of the Pentecost, but we are in between, which is the second month. Today is the first day of the second month of Aya. Blessed new moon to you all, and Hag Sameach. We studied on Sabbath about the reformation of the 5 prophets of Matthew chapter 20. And we saw that the first call, which was early in the morning, was done to Moses. Moses was called as a prophet and led the whole host of Israel out of Egypt, was given a syllabus of the statutes, the judgments, the commandments, the testimonies, and which he gave to the Israelites to follow to become a peculiar people. And because of transgression, a law was added, which is the law of the ordinances, which we saw in Colossians chapter 2 verse 14 was blotted at the cross. So that was the first call, which was the movement of the Israelites. Why first? Because it's the one that brought the Bible, which we now read and enjoy, because the Bible was written first by Moses, writing all these laws about his syllabus. And then we saw the second call, which was coming at the third hour, which is the early Christian church led by Jesus Christ himself, who left his role by the prophet. We know the prophet who was leading the disciples was Paul. Paul was a prophet and also had a gift of an apostle. If you want, you can go back to the video which explains about the gifts, of the spiritual gifts, which is in one of the question and answers. So Paul had a gift of an apostle as well as a prophet. So that's why he was leading the disciples. He was the leader, the preacher to us, the Gentiles who became Christians after the order of Christ, who was on the third hour call. So this third hour call continued with the disciples even when Christ had gone to heaven. So, but we saw these two were fresh messages which were the same in that they were also still keeping the statutes and commandments and testimonies and judgments in the time of Christ. We see them on the day of Pentecost. That's a statute. Receiving the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost. They were still keeping the statutes. But now they were keeping these statutes in a more advanced light. Not with animals, but they were still keeping the ceremonial law without animal sacrifice. Instead, the drink offering, which was the wine, and the bread, the meat offering, which is the bread, continued with the disciples. Then today, we are going to go to the 6th hour call. Let's go to Matthew chapter 20, verse 5. 20, verse 5.
Verse 5.
Yes, 5.
Again, he went out about the 6th and the 9th hour.
Right.
And
you see, the call has got a conjoint expression to say the 6th and 9th. The verse did not say that in the first call or in the third call. It just said he went in the third hour. But these two are conjointly together to see that these disciples, they were working together. And for sure we know this 6th hour call, there was no dialogue like we saw we will see in the 11th hour call. There was a dialogue between the hierarchy and those who are being called. The dialogue was, why stand ye idle? But there is no dialogue like that with the 6th and the 9th hour call. So let's finish that verse first and then we elaborate.
Again, he went out about the 6th and the 9th hour, and did likewise.
Right.
And about the 11th hour, he went out and found others standing idle,
Right.
and said unto them, Why stand ye here all day idle?
So they have been standing all day idle. So you understand now that these 6th and 9th, they were mentioned together. He went again at the 6th and 9th. Why do we go from the early Christian church to go straight to the 6th hour call? It cannot be speaking in connection with these reformers like Martin Luther, John Knox, Campbell, John and Charles Wesley. These were not part of the 5 calls, but because they were reformers. What do I mean? They were only taking the church back to the line where God wanted it. Because you know the invasion of the early Christian church through Constantine created paganism inside the church. And then this church had gone off. It's off the radar. So God needed reformers to take the church back. So these reformers had no new message. They're just making sure if you see the doctrines of Martin Luther, it was the just shall live by faith. So back. Why? Because people were now being made to pay for sins instead of being saved by grace. You see? So you can see those 95 theses that he nailed was just to take the church back to where we confess our sins to God and God alone, and live by faith, not by paying for sins. So we saw even John Knox, who is one who was preaching about the Holy Spirit. It was just to go back to the original design in the Bible. There was not any new message there. And also we have John and Charles Wesley. These ones, they were just righteousness by grace. And we saw how their followers were now believing in grace. And also Campbell, who was now making sure people go back to the original baptism. So he brought that method of baptism, which is in the Bible. In Acts chapter 6, you can find Romans chapter 6, you can find how we are supposed to be baptized in water. So we're now taking the church back to the original design. How were people being baptized at that time? On different things, sometimes sprinkling water and what, that was not pure baptism. Baptism should be in the Bible, that we are buried together with Christ. So these were only reformers. They were not in the line of the 5 messengers who are in Matthew chapter 20. So the very first one we see, who was now called at the 6th hour, is William Miller. How do we say he was called? He was called after reading chapter 8 of Daniel, verse 13 to 14. Let's hear what inspired William Miller. Go to Daniel chapter 8, verse 14. But William Miller was still keeping Sunday, and his followers were keeping Sunday. Though they were keeping Sunday, that's why they were called First Day Adventists. That's William Miller. Why are they conjoined together with the 9th hour? We will see that the one who came at the 9th hour is Sister White, who was called at the 3rd Angel's Message Commission. She was a disciple of William Miller. That's why when she was disfellowship with the whole family, she was going to study with William Miller. That's why the call also of Matthew chapter 20 says, he came again at the 6th and the 9th. So it means you can't believe Sister White's message without having a root coming from William Miller. Advent is a word which means coming of Christ. So if William Miller was an Advent messenger, he was preaching that Christ was coming the second time. And all the churches that have reformed, they did not accept his message, actually. They rejected the message. And that's why when we find William Miller, you can trace, we are tracing William Miller on in Matthew chapter 20, verse 5. It's William Miller, the 6th hour call. Where else do we find William Miller? We will find William Miller on the Revelation chapter 14, verse 6 to 7, the first angel's message. That's William Miller. And when all the people that had reformed rejected William Miller's message, that's where he was also told to proclaim the second angel's message, which is Revelation chapter 14, verse 8, which is proclaiming those churches which rejected William Miller as having fallen and as having assimilated the form of Babylon as well. Because when they rejected a heaven-sent message, they became Babylon. Who was Babylon? The church where they were reforming from was the mother of Babylon. And these now became daughters to Babylon. But we see William Miller's team also, when Sister White came to say, no, it is not the coming of Christ in 1844. It is actually the going of Christ into the Holy of Holies. Sister White was now the third angel's message on Revelation 14, verse 9. And those people who were with William Miller, they were now starting to cause William Miller to reject Sister White's message. That's why God had to lay William Miller to rest. That's how he died. You can read all that in the Reformation and Great Controversy. You'd find how things came about that Sister White took over. Her own teacher was William Miller, and by taking over, she was now responding to the call of Revelation 14, verse 9, which was a warning to us not to worship the beast, and which most of us are doing now. They're worshiping the beast. Why? They're not reforming the times which were changed by the beast. So we should understand these calls properly. But I want to start with William Miller's message. How did he start his message? In Daniel chapter 8, verse 13 to 14. Let's hear.
Then I heard one saint speaking,
Right?
and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, How long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice, and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot?
So it's exactly what Daniel was seeing in a vision. He saw the daily being taken off. So the 3rd hour, 9th hour that we are enjoying right now was taken off in the time of the Dark Ages. And this is what Daniel is saying. How long? And then he was told in verse 14, unto 2,300 days shall the sanctuary be cleansed. So William Miller is the one who started to preach the message after 2,300 days, which occurred in 1844. So you can see a year before that is 1833, William Miller is being raised to proclaim the first angel's message, so that the sanctuary now is ready to be cleansed. So which one? What was that sanctuary to be cleansed? You have to trace it back to what the beast had taken off in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. What is it? We have seen the daily was trodden down, which is the 3rd hour, 9th hour. And also what else was trodden down? Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. Let's read Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. What was trodden down? Because we see from Daniel chapter 7, it is the taking off of 2 laws there. And all the times that we know which emanated with the beast. Yeah, we have listed them all before. But let's hear what was taken down. 7 verse 25, yeah?
King James.
Daniel chapter, yeah, good news.
He will speak against the supreme God and oppress God's people.
Right?
He will try to change their religious laws and festivals.
Do you see? He did not take them off completely. He tried. But we hear now, in our time, that's why we say the beast which is giving 666 in the house of God is in our time. He has taken them off completely. We don't hear of the Passover. But in the Dark Ages, it was substituted. You understand? With Easter being established. But we hear neither Easter nor Passover in our time. So our time is so crucial because this is completely be wiped off. That's why we say when you do a work similar to what the beast did in the Dark Ages, you are exactly who the person predicted from the house of God, which is being judged first. That is judged first by people receiving the mark of the beast and also the seal of God. Those who are receiving the seal of God are putting back to Passover. And those who are receiving the mark of the beast, though they are not keeping Easter, but they are not keeping the Passover, it's a true fact. If you say the seal is on the Sabbath, those who are not keeping the Sabbath, whether they are not keeping the very Sunday, as long as they are not keeping anything, they are already joining the other side. So this is exactly what we are saying to you and me, that the mark of the beast is already, on its completion stage in the church. While you are still thinking it's going to come out from other churches or come out from the world, it's from within us already. We have to conscientize each other to make sure we run away from the mark of the beast. We should know exactly what it is. The introduction of man-made days, man-made festivals, which are not in the Bible, is the mark of the beast. Whatever you are practicing, check if it is written as a thus said the Lord. If not, run for dear life. So we see William Miller proclaiming this message, the first angel's message in Revelation 14, verse 6 to 7. That's William Miller in coming as the call which was done at the 6th hour. And conjointly mentioned with Sister White, because those who were now preparing for the coming of Christ, who proceeded with Sister White in the call of Revelation 14, verse 9, the call of the third angel's message, are now going to succeed the 6th hour call to be the ones called at the 9th hour. So Sister White was proclaiming the 9th hour in Revelation. In Matthew chapter 20, 5 prophets, she was the 4th one. Because we have seen the first one is Moses, second one is Jesus Christ himself, and the third one we saw is William Miller. The 4th one is Sister White coming at the 9th hour. So you should understand why we have all these terminologies in Matthew chapter 20 and how the gospel has gone in our time. You understand? You should know where to check the first angel's message. We saw it in Daniel chapter 8, verse 13 to 14. We saw it in Revelation chapter 14, verse 6 to 7. Yeah? So you are aware that this is the unrolling of the scroll of Matthew chapter 20 of the 5 calls. Do you understand? Now let's go to the 4th call, which is the 9th hour prophet, which now we know, as we have been studying the 6th one. There is no way you can avoid the 9th hour. Yeah. Now let's read from the next verse on the Matthew 20, verse 5, and then proceed. Mm-hmm.
Again, he went out about the 6th and the 9th hour, and did likewise. And about the 11th hour, he went out and found others standing idle, and saith unto them, Why stand ye here all day idle?
Right.
They say unto him, Because no man hath hired us. He saith unto them, Go ye also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right, that shall ye receive.
Right. So we see Sister White coming as a messenger called at the 9th hour. The 9th hour call, how do we trace it in the Bible? Where is the 9th hour call? We saw it in Revelation chapter 14, verse 9. Can you repeat that one? 14, verse 9.
14, verse 9. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand,
Right?
The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God.
It's a dreadful warning. It's a dreadful warning for us who joined the third angel's message. We should bear in mind that there is a warning. It's not only a third angel's message, as people love to mention it. There is a warning not to worship the beast. So you've got to mark your steps and see whether you're not worshiping the beast. Because the warning came to the church. It's not coming to other people. It's for us first, where judgment begins in the house of God. How do we worship the beast? We have accepted the 10 Commandments as it started with Sister White in 1844. As we saw the brethren who were there losing confidence in her, inside that they cast her out to Australia so that they take over her work. We saw it when we were studying. So God raised these two guys, A.T. Jones and Wagona. We have repeated and repeated in several videos to show you how these two guys came about. They came about because they were on the side of Sister White. God had to raise them to proclaim the 1888 message, which was coming to make sure it boosts the third angel's message to be complete. So what we can say is the third angel's message has two parts. The first part was the keeping of the 10 Commandments, as we saw in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. It says, the beast messed around with the religious laws and the festivals. So it cannot be complete without both of them being restored back in the third angel's message. Why are we battling with it now? It's because in 1888, when the second part of the third angel's message, which is the faith of Jesus, which is the festival, which shows Christ on Calvary, on the plan of salvation, has not been proclaimed at all. We've been told that it has never been proclaimed by the church. That's the faith of Jesus. So it can't be a third angel's message without the faith of Jesus. So these two guys, they came with the righteousness by faith to give the church a complete reformation of both laws which have been trampled in Daniel 7 verse 25, the religious laws and the festivals. They came to boost it so that we have a complete reformation. And they say, if we received in 1888 these two messages now were complete, then Christ had only 2 years to come. But you see how Christ has been delayed to come and rescue us into the kingdom. Why? Because of our spiritual declension, which has caused us to reject in 1888 these two guys who were coming to give us the faith of Jesus. You hear people saying, I've got the 10 Commandments and the faith of Jesus. That's enough. Which faith of Jesus are you talking about? Because the Spirit of Prophecy clearly tells us it has never been proclaimed by the church. So this is the call of the 9th, which came at the 9th hour. That was Sister White being called to give the message of warning not to worship the beast. Yes, you run away from the beast when you keep the 10 Commandments, but you are still within his pause when you are not reforming the festivals. When you are not keeping the feast, don't fool yourself that you are not worshiping the beast. You are actually worshiping the beast until you leave the things that had been done by the beast. What is it that you're supposed to do? Keep both the 10 Commandments and the feast. Then you have a complete faith of Jesus together with the 10 Commandments. You can't say you are the peculiar people or we are the peculiar people without these two together. This is clear to anyone who wants to be saved. So, Sister White proclaimed the 9th hour call, which was left incomplete. Why? Because it's got to be together with part A, 10 Commandments, part B, festivals. Otherwise, you cannot say you have reformed when you left what the beast has done. He introduced pagan feast to substitute the festivals. But if then these festivals of the pagans are venturing their way into the church. Then we cannot say we have reformed. We actually are going to receive the mark of the beast if we do not go back to the festivals which God has given in the Bible. We have to keep the Ten Commandments, and we have also to keep the faith of Jesus, led by the living testimony. That's why Revelation chapter 12, verse 17, a complete reformation now is the dragon now was aroused to fight those who have won the commandments and the faith of Jesus, led by the testimony, living testimony. This is clear to anyone who wants to be saved. Never mind how many giants and how many giants have been in faith, but if they don't have the gospel of the festivals, that's where the gospel is. We find this gospel, Sister White has got to have it. If she has to warn the church about worshipping the beast, what is she actually saying? She's actually saying, let's go back to the gospel which was being preached by Christ to the early Christians. What gospel was it? The statutes were still there for the festivals. The judgments were still there. Yeah. And what else was there in the time of Christ? The testimony, they were still being led by Paul, who also was a prophet. Initially was Christ, and when Christ went to heaven, left all the leading of the church with Paul, who was now summoned to go and preach to the Gentiles. So, the same gospel which was given to Moses on Mount Sinai continued with Christ and the disciples in an advanced light without animal sacrifices. The reformers did not bring any new message. They were only bringing back the church which had been led astray into paganism, back to the road which is there in the Bible, the radar in the Bible. But when William Miller came, started now to prepare for the cleansing of the church as a call at the 6th hour. And then when Sister White came, she now was supposed to preach both laws which the beast had messed about, because that's what her warning says. If any man worship the beast, and what is it to worship the beast? Those very laws the beast trampled in the dark ages. So we have a complete, Sister White is sending us back to the laws which were changed and the festivals. We are still in the same route which was being, traveled by Moses, traveled by the disciples, and now Sister White has brought them back. But because they lost confidence in her, God had to use A.T. Jones and Wagona to bring these festivals back. But what do we know? We know that in 1888, when those two guys brought these festivals, or the ceremonial, and the schoolmaster, both the ceremonial and moral is what they were advocating from Colossians chapter 4, is both of them, which were a schoolmaster to make us righteous, but they were rejected. It's there, it's clear tones. This message was rejected in 1888 at Minneapolis. It's in black and white in book 1, Selected Messages, page 233 to 234. You can read on your own. This message was rejected. So that's why God knew it was going to be rejected. That's why he had already forewarned in Malachi chapter 4, verse 4 to 5, that read that verse. We always read it, but let's read it. One day it will make an impact. When you continue to read a verse, it makes an impact as if you've never seen it before, but it's because you are reading without the Spirit of God. That's why sometimes it has no impact. Now, in Malachi chapter 4, verse 4 to 5, let's hear it.
Remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded unto him in Horeb for all Israel, with the statutes and the judgments.
Right.
Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord.
We saw this message of Elijah which is supposed to come before the great and dreadful day of the Lord, which is the day that we are expecting Christ to come. It was not preached by Sister White. Why do I say so? Because Sister White clearly tells us that there is someone she was seeing who was going to do it.
Yeah.
Let's see what she says in 475 Testimonies to Minister. She clearly says there is somebody going to do that. Read on, let's hear.
Let heaven guide.
Let heaven guide, yeah?
Prophecy must be fulfilled.
Right?
The Lord says, Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and the dreadful day of the Lord.
Right.
Somebody is to come in the spirit and power of Elijah.
Right.
And when he appears, men may say, You are too earnest. You do not interpret the scriptures in the proper way.
Right.
Let me tell you how to teach your message.
Did Sister White see somebody?
Yeah.
Coming to fulfill Malachi chapter 4 verse 4 to 5, where we should remember the law which was given to Moses of the statutes and judgment. This one is clear and simple information to anyone who wants to be saved. If you hear that these statutes or the feasts which were given to Moses together with the commandment have been nailed to the cross, refer to that verse and say, this verse says, before the great and dreadful day, these festivals are still there. Because it's saying, he will send Elijah with these festivals before the great and dreadful day. The statutes are the festivals. So, if God has warned us that there's somebody coming who has future to Sister White, then we know for sure Sister White, as preaching the ninth hour call, still was behind the 11th hour call. The 11th hour call was future to Sister White. That's why God is showing Sister White somebody coming to preach Elijah's message, future to Sister White. Simple. It's simple. Sometimes we lack that logic and we just utter, oh, they were nailed to the cross, without thinking. If they were nailed to the cross, why do we have Isaiah 66 verse 22 to 24 telling us that in the new heaven, the new moon is still going to be kept. The Sabbath is still going to be kept. Why do we have such verses if the statutes were nailed to the cross? And if the statutes were nailed to the cross, why do we have Elijah being sent as a prophet, which Sister White is also given proof that somebody is coming to revive, to make sure we are sealed completely, having these statutory laws. Why? Because before that, we couldn't be sealed completely because we only adopted the 10 commandments. We did not adopt the festivals. We can only be sealed completely with all the law, which is the 10 commandments and the faith of Jesus, or the 10 festivals, led by a living testimony or a living prophet. So if we know of those things, that will be something that helps us as we work out our salvation with fear and trembling. Do you understand? So here we are being told somebody is to come in the spirit and power of Elijah. And that somebody, when that somebody comes, we'll have a problem with theologians, because the theologians are being taught to interpret the scriptures. This was what we're told in Desire of Ages, page 101, that they are laying, let's repeat that one, Desire of Ages, page 101. They are the only ones that Sister White is saying, they tell Elijah, let me teach you how to interpret the scriptures. So they are actually warning us that these people will come with big words to want to teach Elijah to interpret the scriptures using those big words. But let's hear, is it what the theologians learn to interpret the scriptures? Go to Desire of Ages. Which paragraph is that?
Point 3.
Point 3. 101.3. Let's hear.
In the natural order of things, the son of Zacharias would have been educated for the priesthood.
Right.
But the training of the rabbinical schools would have unfitted him for his work.
Right?
God did not send him to the teachers of theology to learn how to interpret the scriptures. He called him to the desert
Right.
that he might learn of nature and nature's God.
Right. So God will want people who are only trained by the action of the Spirit, by nature and nature only, like it is with John the Baptist. Because these schools, they teach people how to interpret scriptures. They are not in the Bible. That's why Sister White is saying, when Elijah comes, they will say, let me tell you how to interpret your scriptures using these marvelous big words. So, as we are still seeing, Sister White now was strongly opposed to that. That's why I should say, that's why they didn't like it. Why? Because she did not promote theology. When they saw she was like that, shut her out to Australia. Now, on the 9th hour call, came directly to the lady called Ellen Hammond, who later was married to James White and is called Ellen White. So we find this 9th hour call, we find it in Revelation chapter 14, verse 9, if any man worships the beast. And also, she was now in the time when Christ had entered into the Holy of Holies. What is it that Christ was doing in the Holy of Holies? Let's go to Matthew chapter 22, verse 11. What is it he entered into the Holy of Holies for? Let's hear Matthew 22, verse 11 to 13.
Matthew 22.
Matthew 22,
Verse 11.
verse 11 to 13. Yeah.
And when the king came in to see the guests.
Do you see that? The king is Christ, going in to see the guests. Now, it's being done in the books above. And like it is in Great Controversy, page 483, says there are two phases to the judgment, investigative judgment. The first one is the judgment of those who first lived on earth, who are dead. That's what we call investigative judgment for the dead. The second phase is those who are living, who are going to meet Christ without tasting death. Investigative judgment for the living. So these are the two judgments which the king, when he entered, went to inspect. When he started with the investigative judgment for the dead, then is what we are reading, Matthew 22, verse 11. Let's hear.
And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not on a wedding garment.
That's what he's looking for in the books above. Yeah. He's checking the books of investigative judgment for the dead, checking who has got no garment. So this wedding garment, which one is it? It's the same one we find in Isaiah chapter 4, where it says, there is a garment. There's a garment there. Let's see Isaiah chapter 4. Now we're playing around with the verses now. We are talking the same thing. And this is how it is with present truth. You enjoy the whole Bible talking of one thing. Yeah, that's why we have to study present truth. There's nothing as sweet as present truth. Now let's hear, look, Isaiah chapter 4. This is the garment we are looking for. Let's hear.
And in that day, 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying,
right?
We will eat our own bread and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by thy name to take away our reproach.
Right. So, which are these 7 women? The 7 women, if you see from the reformers, when Martin Luther started, is the first woman. Or maybe the first woman is the church which took over, the early Christian church, which was Babylon, right? And then we see Martin Luther. Next, who came? John Knox. Next, who came? Charles and John Wesley, Campbell. And then next, who came? William Miller. And next, who came? Sister White. All of them, they had man-made ideas involved in their doctrines. Do you understand? They were all dressed with garments which were not the proper garment. Why? Though they had a seed of reformation, but they had other things that they were practicing. Do you understand? So these were the garments that they had. But we want to know which garment, which one then came with a proper garment. Now, they were eating their own bread. They were also wearing their own apparel. Yeah, we can see. Check if you want. With those who believe the sister one, what are they having? Apart from the 10 Commandments, what is the rest? What's the rest? All these topics that are coming, which have nothing to do with the five messages of the prophet. All these things that are coming, the rallies, the whatever, you can name them with all the special names, whatever. But as long as they are not coming from the Bible, they are just their own apparel that they are wearing. Now, let's hear next verse. In that same day, verse 2.
In that day shall the branch of the Lord be beautiful.
That's where we
and glorious.
Now we are in the stage. What is it that Christ is inspecting? We saw in Matthew chapter 22, he saw somebody without a wedding garment. Which one is the garment which he recommended? When he saw the rest of the 7 women, they are not dressed in that garment. All these reformers, they were not dressed in that garment. But where is the garment? In verse 2, it says, in that very day, same day, you find the garment with the branch of the Lord. Amen. It was beautiful. Let's see this garment. How is it? Listen to that.
In that day,
right,
shall the branch of the Lord be beautiful, and glorious, and the fruit of the earth,
and now the fruit of the earth
shall be excellent, and comely for them.
They have agreed to keep the 10 Commandments and keep the festivals. So that's why they are now called branch.
Amen.
How are they called branch? They are called branch from 1844. If they only agree to keep the festivals together with the 10 Commandments, they are now branches.
Amen.
Let's hear, is that in the Bible? Because the verse is in the Bible about the branch. But let's hear in Zachariah 6 verse 12. Do we have a time when people now are called branches? Who are now dressed in an apparel which God will inspect, and he wants to find that apparel. Matthew 22. Now let's hear from Zachariah 7 6 verse 12. Yeah.
And speak unto him, saying, Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, Behold the man whose name is the branch.
Do you see that?
And he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord.
Right. But we want to see, who is this one? And what is he building with? Go to the further verse.
Even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne, and he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both. So they are both with the Holy Ghost, as we started. That the investigative judgment, intercession is being done by Christ and the Holy Ghost. And we saw in another video, it says the Holy Ghost is branch she, and Christ is branch he. Yes. So the counsel of peace will be between them both. Next verse. Verse 14. And the crowns shall be to Halem, to Helem, and to Tobijah, and to Jediah. So the branch message will be the crowning work. Go to the next verse after that. And they that are far off shall come and build in the temple of the Lord. Who are these ones who are far off, who come to build the temple together with the Lord? Go to 595 AA. Acts of the Apostles, book from Sister White. Acts of the Apostles, page 595. I want the topic of that temple. What is the name of the topic? The name of the temple there. What is the topic? The Church Triumphant. The Church Triumphant, which the Christ being the branch is building. Listen to that. Upon the foundation that Christ himself had laid, the apostles built the church of God. In the scriptures, the figure of the erection of a temple is frequently used to illustrate the building of the church. Zachariah refers to Christ as the branch.
Do you see
that
the
should
Zachariah
build-
6 verse 12 that we just read? Sister White comments on Zachariah 6. It says, Christ is the branch. Zachariah talks about the branch. And repeat that verse.
In the scriptures, the figure of the
No,
erection
no.
of
Christ, right? Zachariah,
understand.
right.
Zachariah refers to Christ as the branch.
Right.
That-
Did you hear? Without even going anywhere. If you mention branch, don't bring on all your names of whatever you think. We know if we mention the name branch, it's Christ. Finish. And we know we will search the scripture to tell us exactly when is he called branch. But here we know that name is referred by Zechariah 6 verse 12 is the name of Christ. So in Zechariah, the name branch is for Christ. Listen to that.
Zachariah refers to Christ as the branch
Right?
that should build the temple of the Lord.
Right.
He
So
speaks.
we saw that him that will overcome will build that temple. And we have been referred that the temple is under Christ as he is called branch. Right? Do you understand? Listen to that next sentence.
He speaks of the Gentiles as helping in the work. They that are far off
Did we see
shall
that
come
verse?
and build in the temple of the Lord.
Who are these who are far off, who build that temple of the Lord? The Gentiles. So he speaks of the Gentiles helping in the work of Christ, building the temple of church triumphant, as Christ is called the branch. Now, I don't know how much evidence you want from the scripture, but you still want evidence to say, who is this branch? We have answered, it's Christ. Sister White in Acts of the Apostle, page 595, it says it's Christ. But when is he building the church triumphant? Now, go to Great Controversy, page 415, to tell us exactly when is Christ building this church triumphant. Right?
Point 3.
Right? Point 3.
The work of Christ as man's intercessor is presented in that beautiful prophecy of Zechariah concerning him whose name is the branch.
Sister White is referring back to Zechariah, where we started from. In Acts of the Apostle, page 595, back to Zechariah. That he is the one building the church triumphant with them that are far off. That is a verse in Zechariah. Them that are far off, building the church triumphant with Christ called branch. So, but here we are saying, this work of Christ as man's intercessor is the one where he is called branch. This is what 415, Great Controversy, has said. Now, when did he go in the Holy of Holies? 1844, 22 October. Are we together there? Now, do you know that name started when he started intercession? So, when Isaiah 4, verse 2 will tell you that in that same day when 7 women are eating their own bread, but the branch of the Lord shall be beautiful and glorious. What does Isaiah refer to? Those who have taken up, followed Christ until he changed his name, and also are practicing the branch message. What is it? Of the Reformation, completing it, putting back the religious laws, as in Daniel 7, verse 25. Religious laws, which are the 10 Commandments, together with the festivals. Then these are called branches. These are beautiful according to Isaiah chapter 4, verse 2, and glorious. And when now we are reading Matthew chapter 22, we understand what Matthew chapter 22 means. Let's go back to Matthew chapter 22, verse 11. So now we know the garment Christ is inspecting when he is now called the branch in the Holy of Holies. Let's read now as people who are studying present truth. Read 22 verse 11. Yeah.
And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not on a wedding garment.
So when the warning goes to the church to say, if any man worship the beast, all all those who are worshipping the beast do not have that garment.
Yes.
These are the people God is inspecting when he is now extending the investigative judgment of the living. After he had started the investigative judgment of the dead, he finishes with the investigative judgment for the living. It is our time. What is it that God is saying in the judgment, which is beginning with the church first? He sees those who don't have the branch message, which is the garment. We have identified it with the garment. It's the covering, it's the righteousness. Which is the righteousness? Yes, it's the righteousness. Now, anyone who does not have that garment is the one that God has seen. The king went into the Holy of Holies in the time of the judgment of the living, now with us, sees somebody without the garment. Do you understand? Let's hear next verse.
And
Start
he said,
from 11. From there,
Okay. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man which had not on a wedding garment. And he said unto him, Friend, how camest thou in hither, not having a wedding garment?
That person has no wedding garment.
And he was speechless.
And that person was speechless. Why? Because BSMTV has said it. BSMTV has taught about the garment,
Yes.
about the branch message. BSMTV taught about it. And there was no way to hide because the BSMTV went online worldwide. And there is no way you can, because if you say nobody taught me, God has got every evidence to see you being taught and rejecting. Every evidence. The man was speechless because it's black and white. You know what? The branch message, that's why I love it. Why? Because there is no hearsay. Everything is in black and white. That you cannot say you did not read it. It's in black and white. Even when it is what the beast did in the dark ages, it's in black and white. He changed the festivals and the religious laws. It's in black and white. It's not a hearsay. Even what it is, the mark of the beast, it's in black and white. The warning from Sister White, if any man worship the beast, black and white. That's the warning. We are here because of that warning. We should make sure we don't worship the beast. It's in black and white. That's why the man is speechless. Now here in verse 12, he was speechless. Verse 13.
Then said the king to the servants, Bind him hand and foot,
and
take him away.
Speechless as he was, there was no mercy. Out. There was gnashing of teeth. When the king comes to inspect his own, you will only find the 144,000. The rest, no garment. It's fearful and dreadful. That's why it's a great and dreadful. That's why God had to make sure he sent a message through Elijah of the statutes and judgments so that you have a full covering of the branch message. That's why we see that same branch message is depicted by Isaiah chapter 11, where he says, there is a rod, there came a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and the branch came. So all this was enough evidence to show how the branch comes about, to crown the work. It's the crown of Tobijah, is crowning by the branch message. You can't preach righteousness by faith without entering into the branch message. That's the crowning one. Now, let's read on to Matthew chapter 25, verse 10. That's the same. Let's hear.
25 verse 10. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage.
So when
and
he
the
comes,
door was shut.
When he comes, they that are now fully covered with the branch message will go in. And the rest came after. What? You know, the funny part with that parable is the call came at midnight. And the midnight call called them that, behold, the bridegroom cometh. And it was time now to top up the oil. What is the branch message? This faith, which has not been preached by the church. It was time now to top it up, to start keeping the festivals. That is the oil. To those who were keeping the 10 Commandments, they were to top up. But the call came when the church was in darkness. It was midnight. The 10 virgins are in the whole church, keeping the 10 Commandments. It was in darkness. It was now to add the faith of Jesus or the festivals to top them up to those who were already keeping the 10 Commandments. And there were a portion called foolish virgins. They refused to top the oil at the time the oil was supposed to be topped. Then Christ came and found those who were ready, the 5. They were ready with the branch message. They went in. But they went to buy. They tried to beg those who had topped already. They said, no, go and buy. They went to read. They went to the whole night. They were video after video, PSM TV, video, because the word says they bought the oil. They bought, where did they buy it? They knew where to read. They knew where to find the message. They read it, and it came, but the door was closed. Go, I did not know. So do not peruse this information at the wrong time. Don't be zealous at the wrong time. Be zealous now for the present truth. So here we have Matthew chapter 25, another parable, because this one, 25 verse 10, is the 10 virgins. And also 22 verse 11 is another one, which we saw someone was speechless without the branch message. And then also Matthew chapter 25 verse 32. We have to trace the judgment scene, what God is saying when he was in the judgment scene, and what exactly he is doing. When he came out of the judgment scene, he went now to find nobody. This one had no wedding garment and cast them out. And here in the 10 virgins, the other one had no branch message, out. And then let's hear Matthew chapter 25, verse 32.
When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of glory.
Right.
And before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats.
So people are going to be divided. It's the dividing of the people, the sheep
From the goats.
and they enter in the kingdom. When he has finished the judgment scene, they enter in the kingdom. The goats in the left side, and they are told to depart. It's all another separation. And let's go to Daniel 7, verse 10.
7 verse 10. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands.
Verse 9.
Verse 9. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow,
Right.
and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His
We all
throne,
know that this verse is the scene of the judgment scene. We started in 1844, right? Listen to that.
his throne was like the fiery flame,
Right.
and his wheels as burning fire.
Right.
A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened.
Right.
I beheld.
So that's the verse I'm looking for. Do you see what was happening when Christ entered the Holy of Holies? The very first thing, he started with those who lived on earth, judging them according to the message which came in their generations. So when he came to the judgment of the living, that's when he found people without the branch message. So that separation only occurs in the books. This is what he's doing right now. And when he comes, the separation occurs visibly. We can see it literally. We will see the separation where he separates them to the goats to the left and the sheep to the right. It will be literal. But what happens when he is in the Holy of Holies? The separation is being done in the books. So these are the books which were open, separating people according to the present truth which was in their time. For instance, you can't judge those who lived in the time of Noah. You can't judge them with the branch message because it never came in the time of Noah. You can't judge those who were in Adam's time with the branch message. Or you can't judge those who were there in the time of the Christians, or in the time of Moses, or in the time of Sister White in 1844. Only those who are found in the judgment of the living will be judged by the branch message. Now, Sister White was preaching the third angel's message to the people, starting with those who already died from 1844. That's why from 1844, those who believe Sister White in the Ten Commandments without the festivals in 1844, before the festival message came with 80 Johns, they will be there in the resurrection of the special resurrection. It's there in Great Controversy, page 637. It's clear when graves open, when Christ comes to usher in the kingdom, the special resurrection occurs, and we will see those who believed the judgment for the dead message will be there to be together with those who believe the judgment for the living. They are the only ones who are the Sabbath keepers who were there in the house of God, who will be proclaiming now to the Gentiles. Because when the kingdom is started, then it's time now for the Gentiles to receive the message that we are receiving right now. Do you understand? Now, the 9th hour call we now know. And this 9th hour call and the 11th hour call are two separate messages. Are we together? The first one is the one warning us not to receive the beast under Sister White in judgment of the dead, which is the Ten Commandments. And the 11th hour call is the one now who comes with the faith of Jesus. And that one is starting in the church first and then goes out as a loud cry. Do you understand there? Let's go to the 11th hour call. Let's ponder again into this SOP scriptures. Great Controversy 483 we have read before. It was the judgment, starting with the judgment of the dead and also proceeding to judgment of the living, right? So we know more about this. So this 11th hour call is the one where we should read now and find the dialogue. Let's read the dialogue. Matthew chapter 20.
Matthew chapter 20.
Mm-hmm. Chapter 20, verse 5.
Verse 5.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he went out about the 6th and the 9th hour,
Right.
and did likewise. And about the 11th hour,
Right.
he went out and found others standing idle, and said unto them, Why stand ye all day idle?
Right. So there is, listen to the answer.
They say unto him, Because no man hath hired us. He saith unto them, Go ye also into the vineyard, and whatsoever is right, that shall ye receive.
You see, the answer is no man hired us. Yeah, because this year nobody has been hired to preach the festivals. Because it is the syllabus which comes with Elijah, the prophet. So it's clear from that answer that no man hired us. That message is not there already in the syllabus, which is in Laodicea. It's not there. So God needs to hire messengers for the 11th hour call. Did you hear the dialogue? No man hired us. Of course, it's not there. That's why they tell you that this message is not ours. This is not Adventism. Because no man hired them to preach that message. The message is clearly preached by Elijah of the statutes and judgment comes from Elijah. It's a good answer because nobody has hired them. So what are they doing right now? They are repeating and repeating judgment of the dead message. God needs workers who will now preach the judgment of the living, of the faith of Jesus, which has not been proclaimed by the church. We're told by a quotation from Sister White, it has never been preached by the church. But how does it come then to the church? God needs to recruit workers to preach the judgment of the living, which is the faith of Jesus. So no man hired it. But it also starts, as I was saying in another discussion, I said there are 3 angels to the judgment of the dead. And there are also 3 angels to the judgment of the living. Is it? Now, let's go to Revelation 4, verse 5, I think.
And out of the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings
Right.
and
so
voices.
It is when the thrones have been set. If you go to the previous verses, you find is the judgment scene. Let's hear. She has been describing all that is in the judgment scene. There were 24 elders, there were 4 beasts. Now, this is the judgment scene which he is explaining.
Verse 1.
Then we hear out of that throne in the judgment scene, when the judgment began in 1844, came what came out? Listen to what came out.
Lightnings
Lightning,
and thunderings
thundering,
and voices.
and voices. Did you hear? What we know in 1844, there was a message from William Miller, which was preparing people for that judgment scene, which was the first angel's message. What is the first angel's message called there? Lightning. It was a lightning. And the second angel's message called voices. Thunders, sorry. Thunders and voices. Did you understand? Those 3 messages proceeded from the throne. And we know from Revelation chapter 14, we have 3 angels' messages, which started. Let's see what starts. Lightning, read.
Revelation 4.
14. 4, verse 5. Out of the throne, what starts?
Lightnings,
Lightning,
thunderings, and voices.
Lightning, thunders, and voices. Yeah? Lightning was first, thundering, and voices. So, the lightning one was William Miller, the thundering was William Miller, and voices was Sister White. Why do I say so? When the judgment of the living, the same order goes in a reverse. Let's see when judgment of the living starts in Revelation 8, verse 5. Right. There is a reverse of those messages. Listen to that.
And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire of the altar and cast it into the earth. And there were voices, thunderings, and lightning.
Do you see there is a reverse?
Yes.
So, who was voices on the first? It was Sister White. So, when we are in the judgment of the living, we start with Sister White's message, which has voices. And then the other one is thunderings, which is the second seal, which is New Jerusalem, which was proclaimed by Revelation 7, verse 2, an angel coming from the east, which we believe to be Hotep. Yeah? And then there is also light. We have voices, thunderings, and lightning. Lightning, which is the voice of the 5th angel's message preached by Brother Benjamin Roden. So these are the reverse. Why do I say reverse? They start with voices, which was the end of the three angels' message. So we start also with the three angels' messages on the judgment of the living. And then we go to Brother Wotif, and then we go to Brother Ben Roden. These are the three.
And then an earthquake.
Then what next after the lightning? Right? Let's read from
And there were voices, thunderings, and lightnings, and an earthquake.
Earthquake is Elijah's message.
Amen.
Do you understand? Because after Ben Roden died, we expect earthquake. Earthquake is where we now see Malachi 4, verse 4 to 5, Elijah's message, which now comes to preach all to the people globally, worldwide, so that now the message goes into a loud cry. The whole world will be full of the glory of God.
Amen.
Do you understand there? So, when I say it starts with the first angel's message, let's see if I'm right that the first angel's message, where was it to go to? The first angel's message, Revelation 14, verse 6 to 7. Where was this first angel supposed to go to? Read.
And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people.
Right. Are we sure the message of William Miller went to every nation, kindred, and tongue and people? Is it sure? It didn't.
No.
So we need a first angel's message in the judgment of the living, which goes to every nation, tongue, and people. And for sure, in Revelation chapter 10 is where we find William Miller's message after the book was opened. And let's see whether it was going to every nation. Go to chapter 10, Revelation chapter 10, verse 11.
Verse 11. And he said unto me, Thou must prophesy again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings.
Did you hear this expression of William Miller's message there? He said, prophesy again before many peoples, nations, and tongues and people. So does many nation mean all nation?
No.
To those who know English. Many nation, does it mean all? Because when we go to Revelation chapter 14, verse 6 to 7, it said the message went to all. It did not say to many. It went to all, meaning there is no nation which was left out. So we did not have that message from William Miller going to all. It only went to many nations. But in the judgment of the living, the first angel's message for the judgment of the living goes to all nations.
Yes.
It is the judgment of the living. It goes in a loud cry to all nations. But let's read. Go to Isaiah chapter 66. Want to see, because when we read that verse, we will find another clue. When does it go to all nations? That's my question. We have heard gospels going to many nations, to many tongues, to many kindreds. But we want the time when the message goes to all nations. That's what we are looking for. That's the 11th hour call. We'll go to all nations so that we conclude the earth history with the gospel. So William Miller's one did not go to all. But it says, thou shalt prophesy to all nations. But it only went to many. According to Revelation 10, verse 11, it was many. But we want a message which will go to all, as it was said in Revelation 14, verse 6 to 7. It says in all nations, all. Read it again, Revelation 14. Repeat it.
And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation.
Every nation, all of them, every. So you and I, we have agreed it never went to all nations.
No.
It only went to many nations, like in Revelation 10 verse 11 says many nations. But to all, to every. We want to find that statement to a message which goes to every nation. That's the 11th hour call. Goes to every nation. Now let's hear when it goes to every nation. Go to Isaiah chapter 66, verse 15. Want to find it. Where is this message? What is happening in that scenario? We have never met that subject in Laodicea on Isaiah 66, verse 15, but we will meet it on BSM TV when it's explaining about the 11th hour call, which is going to all nations. Every nation, not in many nations, all nations. But let's hear. Verse
15. For behold,
Right?
the Lord will come with fire,
Right.
and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire.
Right?
For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many.
Is there a time we're expecting him to come, and particularly the coming is not in clouds, but is in chariots, to be rendering anger to people, and they will be slain of the Lord. Some are not slain, some are slain. Is there a time we are expecting? Right? Let's hear what happens when he comes. That's why we tell you that when he comes into the kingdom, he will start with the slaughter of Ezekiel 9. Here it is on verse 15. But where is the slaughter directed to? It says, go into the middle of, in Ezekiel chapter 9, verse 4, go in the middle of Jerusalem, which is the commandment keeping, who have refused the festivals. Go there, because they refuse the festivals, they have no mark. Says, come to those with a mark. In Ezekiel 9, read it for yourself, verse 9, you find what I'm talking about. Don't come near any with a mark. This is Isaiah 66, verse 15. But let's see what happens when he comes to thus render his anger with chariot and pleading by fire and by sword. He will plead with many. He comes with his angels to do that. The very angels who did that when the Israelites walked out of Egypt. There was that. The same ones. Now let's hear more.
Isaiah.
Right, yeah, verse 16.
Verse 16. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many.
Verse 17.
They that sanctified themselves and purified themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord.
Has this scenario, this event, has it happened before?
Not yet.
This is what he's going to do. Behind one tree is behind one leader. Yeah? By principle, one leader who we should look for everything. We say, let's change this way. That leader has not said yes. That leader has said, this is what is happening in Laodicea. He says, behind one tree. They sanctify in their gardens. Gardens are churches. And also eating swine's flesh and whatever. This is health and temperance, which we are refusing. This is the reason why the Lord is angry. We have seen that. But let's go to 18. Then after that scenario is occurred, what happened in verse 18?
18. For I know their works,
right,
and their thoughts. It shall come that I will gather all nations and tongues.
Did
and
God
they
say
shall come.
He's gathering all nations and tongues? Is it not? It's not many nations. It's saying all. All. There's no exception. All. So after that scenario, then he gathers all Gentiles. He has finished with the church. He gathers all Gentiles. Do you understand? When Matthew chapter 25 verse 32 said he was going to come in his glory, did you understand? In another way, he's coming to do that first. And then when he gathers all the Gentiles, that's why they are in front of him. He's separating them. The sheep to the right, the goats to the left. Right? Let's hear more.
And I will set a sign among them,
Mm-hmm.
and I will send those that escape of them unto the nations.
Did some escape the slaughter which occurred in Laodicea? Yes.
Yeah.
Those with a mark or seal of God, they escaped the slaughter. Now these are the 144,000 which he is standing with on Mount Zion. After standing with the 144,000, which we see in Revelation 14, he sends them now to all nations. Do you see who is going to do the job of preaching to all nations? It was not William Miller. It was 144,000. They are sent to all nations. Listen to the countries.
And I will send those that escape of them unto the nations, to Tarshish,
Right?
to Pool,
Right?
Lod, and that draw the bow,
Right?
to Tobel, to Javan.
Right. These
To
are
the
original
hours
names. If you want, you can go to Good News Bible. It will tell you which names are those in the terms that we know now, the countries that we know now. But he is mentioning them with their original names before they were changed by different independencies like that. Now read on, let's hear.
And I will send them to the Gentiles, and they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto the Lord,
Right.
out of all nations upon horses, and in chariots,
The transport is given.
in chariots, in litters, upon mules, and upon swift beasts, to my holy mountain Jerusalem, saith the Lord.
Right.
As the children of Israel bring an offering in a clean vessel into the house of the Lord.
Do we understand now when we say this kingdom is set, and then that's when the 144,000 will preach the gospel into all the nations? Year by year, day by day, all the saints are being brought to the kingdom which is in Jerusalem. This is yet future to us, and this is the job of the 11th hour call, where people have been called under a prophet to make sure this will happen in our sight. But from the first call, Moses, second call, Christ, third call, William Miller, fourth call, Sister White, 11th hour call, which is Elijah, the prophet, with the syllabus of the same syllabus which was with Moses, the statutes and judgments. So the same which was coming from Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai still is there without the killing of lambs. And it is the very 11th hour call which will start first in the church and also unite all the people from all over. That's when the judgment is going, the gospel is going into every nation, kindred, and tongue by these workers who are being sealed right now with the gospel. We are being given a covering, which covering? The branch covering, so that when they have that covering, they are now able to be sent into all nations with who are sealing off. Matthew chapter 20 with the 5 calls. The last call is the 11th hour call. Just soon as the earth history is concludes into the kingdom, and when the kingdom is established, the Gentiles now are called by the servants of the 11th hour call. We know we still have a prophet until that work is complete in the 5th call. May God bless you as you continue in these calls, which has just started. 11th hour call starts in the church and proceeds into the world when Christ comes to join the workers, so that the people are ready now to be translated to go into heaven. May God bless us all.